So with that, Stephanie is going to tell us more about the role of technical manager in attracting, developing, and retaining talent. So super interesting topic, especially, and super timely, especially with the great resignation and everything that's going on in the post-pandemic world. So with that, I'll just pass it on to Stephanie. Welcome.
Thank you, Marco, and hello, everyone. So nice to meet you. We'll give you just a little bit of a nugget of, how about I get the right screen up, a little bit of nugget around me and who I am, sort of where I've been. Here we go. I've got Zoom doing all kinds of funky things. I don't know if that's ever happened to y'all, but it happens to me sometimes. Here we go. Now we got it going on. So my name's Stephanie McClellan. I am a leadership development partner at HubSpot. Just some tidbits, about 15 years or so of experience in the management and leadership development space. My passion is really around helping managers develop right where they're at, right in their seat. So about 10 years experience in the L&D space. So I'm excited to be with you. I've a little under a year at HubSpot. So hopefully have some things to offer today that might be useful to you. You can see my stuff on the screen here. My husband, David, in the bottom. There are children, Aliana and Crawford, who aren't really children anymore. I guess 19 and 20 is not really children, is it? No. Our pups, Blue and Lulu. Sushi is my favorite food of all time, and the beach is my jam. So I don't know if I have any folks in the audience who feel the same way about sushi or the beach, but if you do, you are my people. So good for that. Listen, I am super informal, and I would love for this conversation that we have today to be informal. Two-way conversation. I have some things to share with you, some questions to ask you that I'm hoping you'll engage with me around. And then I've got an example to share that we can talk about together, and we'll go from there. Here's where I'd like to head. You know, when I gave Tomomi my topic to talk about sort of the manager's role in hiring, developing, and retaining talent, I don't think I realized that's pretty big. That's a really big topic for like a 30-minute talk. So I'm gonna focus that in a little bit for us today. What I really want to talk about is how those three things make up the customer experience, why they matter, why they matter now, especially. And then I want to hone in on development, because, and maybe it's just the space I'm in, but development affects both of those things. It affects how we attract people to jobs, to roles, and it also affects how well we're able to really retain them, keep them. If we're not developing them, then we're going to lose them, likely. So I want to hone in on that. And specifically what I want to hone in on around development is some low-tech strategies. So we're all from high-tech firms, high-tech companies. Development doesn't always have to be high-tech. So I want to share some of those things with you, some of those tools that we've been using that seem to really work around development, especially for managers to be sort of the driving force in that development. And then we want to talk about, how do you know if you've hit the mark? I've done all this, now what? How do I know if I'm there? So being able to measure the success of those initiatives. Michael, thank you for +1 on sushi and the beach. I appreciate that. And Sandy Beach all the way. I love it. I've got a question for you. You can respond in chat or you can speak out. I'm good either way. Think about a time you had an exceptional customer experience. It can be with any kind of anything, a brand, something that you would just consider an exceptional experience. Think about that for a second. And I'd love to hear in chat or out loud, what made it an exceptional experience? What was it? Here we go. Went beyond my expectations. I love that. Sandy, in what way? I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm so sorry. In what way did they go beyond your expectations? Oh, Tan says that they didn't have to do it. There you go. Jasmine says exceeded my expectations, and if it didn't, then received a refund. Okay, there you go. What else? What else makes it an exceptional customer experience for you? Is it just the product?
When the people working there are enjoying it and are like free to be expressive.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the product and the company can be fine, but the person can be like demoralized or something. And it's not their fault. It's like, but it's just the company didn't set it up for them to be
Yeah.
excited to
Right.
be in the role they're in.
Excellent. Thank you, Stuart. Anybody else? What can you add to that? Come on, there are lots of things that make an exceptional customer experience. I bet we could talk all day about what doesn't make an exceptional experience, couldn't we? Yeah, we all could. So let's think about that. Maybe it's because they treat me special. There you go. Just not like another number. I like that. Over delivering, they care. They're personable, interested in me when they don't have to be. Well, I like that, James. Always nice when they add a personal touch, and when it's not the try too hard or reading off of a script situation like that, maybe they remember me, Stuart. Yeah, all of those are true about exceptional experiences. And I think about, for me personally, I think about things like a restaurant, like my favorite restaurant. Honestly, my favorite restaurant is not my favorite restaurant because of the food. It's not. It's because they have an amazing patio. They have an amazing outdoor patio that I could go live in. Well, not really live in, but you know what I mean. It's just why, yes, maybe it is a sushi restaurant, as a matter of fact. So they do have good sushi, but not the best sushi I've ever had. But they have that outdoor. So my point here is that we all have different markers or different things that make experiences powerful for us. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different, but just because they're different doesn't mean they're not as important. They are. So excellent. Thank you for going there with me. Now I want to switch gears for a second. What makes an exceptional employee experience? Think about this. If you were hiring for a job, what would be important to you? Just as an example. You can talk about anything, not just hiring, but what makes an exceptional employee experience? Growth opportunities, Marco. I like that. The employee feels valued, they're respected, sense of belonging, opportunity to make an impact and growth. We anticipate what they'll need and have it ready when they come asking for it. Yeah. Makes it easy to do their job. Free swag, Jasmine. I'm a huge fan of free swag, and HubSpot has some pretty sweet free swag. Having the right tools, absolutely. All of those things are important. Collaboration, questions are encouraged. Fun, right? Tools, having the tools readily available, and good tools, useful tools. Yeah, all of those things make a really good employee experience. Well, here's what I would say. Oh, free food. That's right. Dogs to work. Absolutely. So important. Psychological safety. HubSpot even has a beer garden in our home office. I've never seen it. I want to go badly. But there is a beer garden, and dogs are allowed. Can't be all bad. Psych safety. So important. Who plays the largest part in that employee experience? What do you guys think? Yeah, Alexander. Boom, 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 and boom. The manager, of course. It's reality. The phrase, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. I think it's true. There are other things that people leave, like culture and things like that. But ultimately, where I've been, I don't know where you guys have been in your careers, but from where I've been, people leave most of the time because of their manager. So it is so important that we take this. I don't care if you're in a tech role. I don't care what role you're in. The manager plays a crucial part in that. So here's what I would offer up. Customer experience is equal to employee experience. It's the same thing. Our employees should be our most valuable customers. And those moments that matter are the moments you guys just shared with me about what makes for a great employee experience. Those are the things that matter. So we have to pay attention to what we're doing as managers, as leaders, to make sure our employees are getting the experience that we want them to have. Here's what the employee experience is made of. Attracting, developing, and retaining employees. It's pretty simple. I don't think that's a secret. Everybody, I think, is pretty much aware of that. Here's where I want to focus, though. I want to talk about this idea of development and what tools managers can be using to really press forward in development so that we can retain, so that we can attract employees ongoing. And it doesn't have to be that hard. It really doesn't. So let's talk about some of those strategies. And this is going to sound so contradictory. Y'all, it's going to sound really contradictory because we are a high-tech company. You are all from high-tech companies. But these strategies I'm about to share with you, they're not rocket science, and they're really low tech, but they work. They absolutely work. So let's talk about them. They're all framed, these strategies are all framed around what we call playbooks and guides. And they're on-screen resources that provide step-by-step guidance around a skill, a process, a topic. Could be on a training that somebody, just an employee just went through. Could be on team process, for instance. These are reusable tools or conversation guides that managers have access to and then can give their employees access to whatever pieces make most sense and leverage them alongside their employees to help them move forward faster. They're also living resources that are easily updated and shared. They're created in Google Slides for real-time updates. And I don't know how many of you are Google Drive, your organization operates from that basis. Like Google Drive is your SharePoint, essentially. How many of you are there? Most of us? Okay. Awesome. Well, let me just say, when I came to HubSpot, I was not. I had never, I knew what Google Drive was, but I had never really dove head first into it. I was a SharePoint girl, and that was just the way it was. Well, let me just tell you that my eyes have been open to a lot of things. And so we create a lot of this in Google Slides. Playbooks and our guides are visual. They combine images, words. They're organized for easy reference for folks, and they're easy to retain. Now, you might be asking, okay, Stephanie, so why couldn't you just create an e-learning? Why couldn't you use Rise? There are lots of different ways that you could serve this up in a very high-tech way. Well, personally, speaking from me personally, sometimes I don't want to log into 4 systems to get to a piece of content. And then I don't want to sit through a 30-minute e-learning to get what I really need to get if it can be consolidated into a simple format that is easy for me to use, includes the tools I need, gives me the framework, gives me guides that I can fill in and share. So that's really where we're at with playbooks and guides and how we use them. We also leverage Plus in a way that is just super fantastic, because it gives us, Plus is a high-tech tool. It gives us that vehicle or that mechanism to pull easy to use, scalable resources into an organized spot for learners to be able to come in and see a calendar of when something's going to be offered, or resources and tools that they can tack onto really easily to get what they need. So we use Plus not only for e-learning, for attaching e-learnings to live courses that are coming up, but also playbooks and guides. So super easy way to organize and to use a high-tech tool to leverage some low-tech goodies, if you will. I want to show you some examples now of some of those low-tech tools, and then I'm going to give you a real example and walk through it together to show you what we've done. And then I'd love to hear your perspectives on what you think about it and what you're doing, or what you could do with something like this. So one of the first things that we use playbooks and guides for is career growth conversations. Now, you guys tell me, what's the problem with career growth conversations? In your experience, what's the problem with them, where managers and employees are concerned? Oh, here comes the chats. Too scripted. Every manager on their own. Yep. There's no roadmap. It's true. Anything else? Easy to scapegoat, to blame lack of career growth on what? On the conversation or the company, Stuart?
Like if people are saying, oh, I don't have enough career development opportunities here, we're like, are managers having career growth conversations? That's the solution. And it might be, but it's like, I don't know. I think it's important to have, but I think there's other things going on too.
Yeah.
But more to it, I think managers are just like they're incentivized to get work done, and so they use one-on-one time to, review the agenda and get work done. And
Yeah,
there's not really an incentive, like a week to week incentive to be developing the careers of their people.
yeah, Stuart, I think that's such a good call out. I think you're right. Managers are taught to be managers. Get the work done. Help get work done through others, right? And this whole career growth conversation thing, I think it scares managers. I think it does. There's no playbook A to B, Marco. You're right. It's a conversation, no results. May not feel genuine, unclear or diluted. Who owns what? I think you're all spot on. I will tell you that from my personal experience, the biggest obstacle with career growth conversations is that managers don't know how to do it. They don't know how to have the conversation, and they're afraid that if they do have it, then oh my gosh, I'm going to have this conversation. I know that we don't have any positions for this person to grow into or step into. They're going to leave, or they're going to tell me that they can't get what they need here, and so they're going to go somewhere else. I don't want to have that conversation. They want to lose resources. They want to develop. So I think one thing is for sure, we need to be having these conversations. Employees need help with their career. I'm not saying you have to tell them what to do and where to go, but they need that guidance. They need that coaching, that sounding board for those conversations. Look, I love these stats. 82% of employees would be more engaged if their managers had regular career conversations with them. Fact. 75% would be more willing to stay at their current company if they received ongoing professional coaching. 16% of employees say they have ongoing conversations with their managers about their career. That is such a low number, 16%. And we wonder about the great resignation, don't we? Interesting. Here's what we do at HubSpot. Growth conversations are super important, and we use those low-tech tools that I was just talking about to sort of serve those conversations up, help managers have the conversation and step through the right questions to ask. And then we connect them with their HRBP, their HR business partner, for support if they need it during those conversations. Here are some of the topics that we talk about. We check in on the employee, ask how they're feeling about their work, what's happening, what do you love, what do you hate, what do you want more of? We want them to understand the employee's career interests, build trust. This kind of a conversation is huge. Understand the employee's career interest. There may not be possible at your organization, by the way. That's okay. That's okay. Identify areas where they may need more exposure, experience, or formal education, and then help that employee identify a single focus area for, let's say, a 6-month time period to help them move forward with some concrete action steps. Sounds pretty simple, right? Here's the guide that we use for that. Again, it's a Google Doc. Everything is locked down. All the text, everything's locked down at the theme layer, and the text boxes are fillable. This is a conversation it's a guide that walks the manager through how to have this conversation with the employee. And then if they need to connect again with their HRBP, they can following that conversation. So this is one example of a guide that we use. On the heels of this conversation, of that growth conversation, we want managers to help, to support, and encourage their employees to have a development plan, to create it on the heels of that. Here's what you came up with. Now let's create a development plan for you, employee, to put some of those actions, some of those things you said you wanted to do, into action. And so we've created a development plan guide that really focuses on these 3 things. It's about the manager partnering with the employee to write a personal development plan, agreeing on next steps, timelines, all the outcomes, what that employee wants to get to, and then to reconnect regularly. And it could be on the back end of a one-on-one, but to schedule follow-up meetings for 3 to 4 months out. Super simple. Here's the guide for that. Again, it's this step-by-step. We even give the managers the questions to ask. We want to make it easy for them. And then they can fill this guide in along the way as they go. They can fill it out alongside the employee. They can give the employee the link to this guide, and they can fill it out together. Okay? So super simple ways to really get engaged with your employees' development, and conversation guides to help you get there. Here's my favorite. I'm going to camp here for a little bit because I think this is so important. And this is something that I have really personally tried to champion at HubSpot that has made a big difference in how we do things like ACR, like how, when I say ACR, our annual compensation review process, to help managers find their way through that. Before we started using things like Playbooks, so I don't know about y'all, but we had like 6 decks that we would send to managers at different parts of the process for the annual review conversation to give them, okay, here's what you do next. Here's what you do next. And it was a slide deck. So they got to weed through 20 or 30 slides to understand what those next steps are. We've converted most of those to these playbooks that I was just talking about. Low tech, super low tech, easy squeezy. One of those things, I'll talk more about that in just a second. But one of the things that we provide to managers on that low tech scale is a coaching guide. When their employees going through a training, they're developing in some area, it could be to use with their development plan. We give managers a coaching guide to help them help the employee before, during, and after that experience, so that they're doing things like before they're learning, they're setting up one-on-one conversations to make sure that this is the topic of the conversation, their development or their goals that they've made for this this particular learning or skill that they're building. They set goals, they set expectations, a completion date even. So this can be paired or married with that development plan to help the manager coach along the way. I use this most often in programs, learning programs, where maybe it's a spaced program and there's 3 or 4 sessions, virtual live learning sessions, and we want the manager to really walk along step with the employees to be able to make sure that learning transfers into action. So this coaching guide helps them support learning all the way through. Here's an example of what that looks like. Super simple. It's a fillable Google Doc or Google Sheets, actually, not Sheets, slides, I'll get it out. Google Slides, where we give them coaching questions to ask. We give them really the conversation starters for every step of the learning to help them engage and walk in lockstep with their employees. This is another example. Here's some other examples of playbooks that we've created. On the left-hand side of the screen is an onboarding new hire buddy playbook that includes, well, like, you know what, I'm going to show you. I'm going to send you a link to that. Actually, Tammy, would you mind putting that link in the chat for us? Awesome. You guys can click on that and take a look at the guide that's there. That's your template. You can do with it what you want to, but what you'll notice about how we've created those playbooks is that there is no text on the surface layer of that Google slide. All the text is at the theme layer. And then we create text placeholders to make it usable and reusable, because the biggest thing with Google Slides or Google Docs, if you've used them, sounds like you all have, is that people can go in and change them. Inadvertently, they can go and change them. So we've learned that if we can put that content at the base layer, at the theme layer, then they don't know how to touch it. Most of them don't know how to touch it, which is awesome. They just go in and make a copy and they leverage it the way that they need or want to leverage it, using those placeholders as fields. The only thing that's not a placeholder in that doc that you're going to see is the checklist, because Slides hasn't yet figured out a way to do checkboxes, and I really wish they would get there. So that's just the text box on that front layer. But this gives you a template, sort of an idea of how we use those guides and toolkits along the way. I want to respond to a question in chat from Jasmine. What does a manager do when there are no growth opportunities for the staff to be promoted into? And do you have a guide for a manager trying to justify the cost to their leadership? So let me start with that first question, then I want to ask some clarifying questions on that second question. What does a manager do when there are no growth opportunities for the staff? So listen, that is nothing new, because it happens in every career, every job I've been in. there are always spaces where there's nothing next. There's nowhere to go beyond that role. I think it is a conversation about growing in place and what can you do to help that employee either level up their skills in place, stretch their skills in place, take greater leadership roles in place so that they feel like they're growing, even though it's not in another role. Sometimes that means that they need to grow into another role somewhere else. Maybe it's not at your organization. That stinks. That really stinks sometimes, because that means we lose good talent along the way. I can tell you from HubSpot's perspective, we have some work to do on things like succession planning, where we kind of know the roles that are in front of us. We know the next position up. We know where people can grow into. And as we scale, and we are planning to scale in a huge way over the next 3 or 4 years, we better get our ducks in a row around succession. You know what I'm trying to say. If we don't get our ducks in a row around that, these kinds of conversations that you're talking about are going to be even harder, because we don't know what's in front of us. We don't know what the next role could be for that person. So great question, Jasmine. I hope that that helps to clarify. Your second question, do you have a guide for a manager trying to justify the cost to their leadership? Say more about that, the cost to...
The cost to the company. So it has to be in the best interest of the company to then open up that promotion track or that opportunity for the individual.
No, but wouldn't that be great? What a great idea to have a guide, kind of a justification guide that helps somebody move to the next level. No, I love that. We don't have that guide. The way we do that now is really through conversation, right? It's just through simple conversation. And if we gave managers a guide, I think we'd see a lot more of it. So I think that's a brilliant idea. I'm going to take that back with me. Good stuff. Let's see, anything else before I move on? Hey, Stuart, you can also create the document as a regular Google Doc, allow only editable for you. You're right. Then distribute a link to it with copy at the end. You're exactly right. Anyone that clicks in it will be able to be prompted to make a copy of the document. You are exactly right. Thank you for sharing that. I just got to say my preference is slides, because I think I have more flexibility in slides with visuals, with text, with, kind of making it. Here's the thing about these playbooks. They need to be visual. They can't just be text on a page. They've got to be visual, because so many of us are visual. Like this hiring process that's on the right-hand side of the screen, it has to be visual so that people can, I could have just pulled those off. I could have pulled those visuals over on the left-hand side off, but who wants to look at that? It pulls me in. It makes me want to find out more about what's happening. And if I can do it, if I can build these playbooks in a very concise way, make them sort of a one-stop 2 to 3 page resource for folks that they want to put their hands on, that's the money shot. That's what we're talking about. Awesome. So here's some of the things that we hear from our folks who are using playbooks. The fact that I have a copy of the playbook to easily reference as I write and deliver reviews is awesome. I will definitely use that playbook to help me structure my thoughts. And this was from a performance review playbook that was created. This other one's from an ACR playbook. It was truly valuable, made things so much clearer and easier for me as a manager. So from these kinds of comments, we know they work. We know they work. And folks don't have to log into 5 different systems to get to something that they can immediately leverage. So now, how do you know that you're being successful, that you're using these tools, you're leveraging them, and that they're actually working to do what you want them to do, which is to develop your employees? Here are 3 things that we do at HubSpot. We use upward feedback surveys. And those, they're changed, they're tweaked just a little bit each year, depending on what we're doing globally across the organization. But essentially, it's a way to give feedback to managers that is anonymous and is focused on strengths and growth opportunities. It's a way for employees to say, hey, you're hitting the mark. I feel good about the development I'm getting. I feel good about all the things that are happening. Or, hey, I'm not feeling good about this. So upward feedback surveys are a great way to gauge whether or not some of these development strategies are working. Performance tracking is another. You've got to observe. If you're leveraging these and you're looking for your employee to develop, you've got to watch. Observe what they're doing. Ask for an account. Review progress during one-on-ones, on the fly progress also. And then document. I could do a whole session on documenting. Document, and document. The last piece is stakeholder check-in. So important not to just rely on your own eyes and your own observation. That is important, but ask stakeholders. How's this person showing up? He or she, they have been working on these areas. What are you noticing? Give me descriptions, details about what you're seeing. What are your impressions, your personal evaluations? And then, oh, look at that last one, document your observations. Okay, so I feel like I've just given you guys a quick, literally in your face kind of overview of how we leverage some low-tech tools to really further employee development. It plays into how we hire, how we attract, and how we retain employees. What other questions are on your mind?
One that comes up for me, Stephanie, is what are you observing? How are managers using this? Like, so what's the adoption rate? Any success stories? Like, can you actually kind of close the loop and tell how much it's actually moving the needle for them and their teams, or any of that data available?
Yep, I can tell you this. This is relatively new for us, right? So we've just started using this approach over the past 8 months or so, and just in the feedback alone, the number of managers who've reached out, and particularly I'll give ACR as an example that I used earlier, annual compensation review. I've never seen our Slack blow up the way that it blew up when we provided these playbooks instead of the 6 to 7 decks that they normally provide. So in terms of adoption rate, I can go in and see how many people touched it, how many people tagged it, or looked at it. I have no doubt, based on the feedback that we received, that it is a useful tool, a used tool by folks. I do think we need to collect that data on a sort of a more macro level. But right now, we're just so dang excited that people are leveraging these things. I think it kind of helped us to break a mold that we don't have to provide all of this whiz bang high tech stuff to really keep it, and that keeping it simple is what matters. And so that's where we're focusing moving forward.
Got it. And you seem super excited about that. So that's that comes across as super awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I am excited about it. I see another question in chat. How's the personal development growth of your employees connected to their annual compensation? So we're not, I wouldn't call us pay for performance organization. That growth, however they're developing, however they're growing, is really a conversation and an observation from the manager and the employee. So that manager is watching how that employee is developing, and then how, not just how they're developing, but how they're impacting results, as part of that development. And when we look at performance and when we bump it up against compensation, we look at not just how that person is getting results, but we look at, are they using heart? How are they getting those results? So all of that plays into compensation at HubSpot. It's a complex conversation, but I hope that helps. Alexander. Jasmine, do you have a matrix on how to assess skills and what is required for the next level? Did I mention that we just hired a talent director who is working on that very thing to help us be able to really, and that goes into succession, right? It goes into how do we know when folks are at the next level? What are the competencies that we're really looking at? What levels are inside of those competencies, so that we know where people need to be? We are working on that. We are not there, and we better get on it, because that kind of a infrastructure is going to be so important as we scale. Great question, Jasmine.
Any other questions on how these low-tech tools are playing out, how managers are using it, anything along those lines, what the impact is on the people?
I just want to jump in again on the matrix for skills, because it seems like every company needs this. Do teams collaborate in some capacity on building these?
On building the skills or building the
Well,
matrix?
I should not just like HubSpot, but do they have consortiums like this one, like TechKnowCon, where they discuss just skill assessment for technical employees?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It would be great if they did. I am sure it's out there. I am sure those conversations are out there. If you find one, will you let me know? Because I would love to be on it.
It's a big question, right? Like we come across that all the time. Like, what does it mean to know DevOps or Java, or it's often a binary yeah or nay, but like there's so many shades of gray, and then like who evaluates the evaluators? Like is the age-long question. So there's some things there that are challenging. I haven't seen it done well, to be honest.
Haven't either, and I think if it had been done well and made available or public, we would have latched onto it too. I think it is a very customized, it's a very individualized thing to create. And frankly, I think it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking about my previous observation about the scripted part, like I love checklists. I mean, Jasmine actually gave a talk back in like a year ago on checklists, which I thought were brilliant. And it seems like you're using them here as well. That said, how do you go sort of past this sort of like just a checklist, which can start to potentially feel a little bit impersonal, sort of people are doing it because they're expected to do it as opposed to they're really invested in each other. How do you sort of coach that sort of, going beyond, at least the way this is delivered in practice doesn't feel like just a form to fill out, that feels like an actual investment of time and energy in the growth?
So what I didn't share with you is a guide that we also provide for the manager of the buddy. And in that guide, we give the manager a coaching guide to help them prepare the buddy to be a buddy for the new hire. Because to your point, I don't want this to feel, I don't want that person to feel like, okay, I checked the box, I checked the box, I checked the box. That's not what this is about. This particular checklist that I shared with you guys, or guide that I shared with you guys, is really about someone coming alongside a new manager hire and acclimating them to the business, making them feel comfortable with their new position with HubSpot, to feel like they have a connection. That is the real objective of a buddy. The checklist is just there to give them a roadmap of what they should be talking about. And the manager actually has a guide, the manager of the buddy has a guide to help coach them through that, so that they really understand what this experience is about and how they can make it their own. So in this instance, we do want to prepare the manager so that they're and the buddy, to make sure that that we're all thinking about it in the same way and providing an experience instead of a checklist robotic kind of thing. Does that help?
So Tan had a question about, are there any programs to encourage bold new ideas and risks? So presumably checklists can get you up and running and competent, right? But is there a way to, or do they also work to go above and beyond that, to kind of venture off the reservation, be innovative, try new things, or is that a different set of tools?
So I have used checklists in the past for brainstorming activities to help people think through new ways of approaching a problem, or new ways of working together, or thinking about a problem. And the checklist is really designed to open up your thinking. To sort of give you this kind of this step-by-step, and okay, let's do this, check it off. Did you have this conversation? Okay, now have this conversation, check it off. And to help you sort of think through a process. So I do think there's a place for them in lots of different respects. I think though that we've got to make sure that we're there's a before the checklist kind of a level setting or a conversation about what we're using it for and what the outcome should be as a result.
Got it. And when you go through those checklists, what do you lean on as a to-dos? Is it mostly e-learning? Is it workshops? Is it like go read this document? How do you think about that portfolio?
Yeah, all of it.
All of it? Got it. Okay.
I have used checklists as a takeaway from learning programs. I've used checklists as a preparatory tool for managers to have conversations with their employees. I mean, there's so many things they could be for bias, for busting bias in an interview, or when you're writing a performance review. I have a bias busting checklist that I ask all managers to go through to make sure that they're keeping in mind specific things as they write a review. So I use them a lot, and I think that it helps to frame for people where they need to go and how they can be successful.
Got it. Jasmine had a question.
Let's see. I know you focused on low-tech solutions, but does part of you really wish this data was in a backend database so you could query potential internal trainings you can offer that match the most? Wouldn't that be awesome? Yes. No, I do think that there is absolutely what you're suggesting. There's validity to that. There's no doubt. I think there's a place for both. I think there's a place for simple structure, 2 pages, 1 pages, and I think there's a place for more tech focused approach. I think there's a place for both, and we try to balance and leverage where we think they fit best with our population and how they're going to be received. But yeah, good question.
At one point, when Sasha and I were at Twitter, what we did is we built basically a checklist on top of Jira. So a new hire would basically, we would just process like a piece of text that got converted into a number of Jira tickets, and that would be assigned to the manager, hiring manager, as well as the new hire. And so that way you could actually see what they did or didn't do and had visibility. And so that was our back end, right? So
nice.
An anti-pattern there.
But I think like this is what's interesting here is the medium is part of the message. If it's like almost too systematized, it may start to feel potentially a little bit impersonal. Whereas like when it's a shared doc between 2 people, it may feel a little bit more kind of engaging. And this is where like finding that sweet spot is not always obvious, in my mind at least.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really good point.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's funny because as you were going through this presentation, I realized that the checklists are amazing in kind of checking off, funny enough, the awareness component. I am always biased towards sometimes the practice component. Ultimately, I think with learning and development, it's like showing and teaching and encouraging people to be persuasive and how to do that here specifically. So I'm always excited to see maybe in the next step for you and HubSpot is how do you get that hands-on practice component to almost bolster the awareness? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do actually. And it's something that HubSpot, when I first came to HubSpot, we were sort of I like to refer to us like and Jasmine, I'm gonna use Netflix here, okay? As the Netflix of learning. That is sort of how we approached learning. There was a little something for everybody. Come get you some, little something of this, little something of that. But I don't think we went deeply enough into that topic to give folks the practice that they really need to turn learning into action. And so we're revamping a lot of our learning and making it more of a spaced approach so that we're serving up the learning. We're giving some time in between and field work, specific assignments to go out now, try this. Go do this. Go do it with a peer partner or a buddy or your team. Go try this out. Come back next session and let's talk about how it went. What worked, what didn't work. We do things like fish bowls for coaching, where we really put people into coaching or to that coach's seat or that coaching mindset and ask them to really coach on a real situation, peers in the classroom, so that they're getting that experience before they have to go out and actually put it into practice. So those kinds of things are absolutely what we're integrating, because if we don't give them the practice that they need, if we don't help them translate it, then it's for naught. I mean, they're going to take they're going to take that playbook and they're going to shove it in a drawer somewhere, or that checklist or whatever it is. We have to make them accountable and give them the means to be able to go and practice it.
question actually about that. What kind of leadership support do you have in order to have people follow through with this, to sort of give more credence to this kind of work, so they don't just see it as like, oh yeah, you know, this is what Stephanie wants me to do, versus like this is the ethos of HubSpot?
Yeah, I think it depends on what we're serving up. For some things, we need to get buy-in from a level up, and not just buy-in, but we need to include that level up along the way, kind of that with that coaching guide that I shared and program overview. We want to make sure that we have at least a level up, bought in, and moving with us through that program. Potentially even serving as executive sponsors, executive coaches, you know, whatever that is. We want to make sure that we've got that sponsorship all the way through, because that sponsorship is buy-in and it's accountability. Super, super important. And we haven't always done that well, but we're realizing that we're going to need to. We're going to need to hold people accountable for what we ask them to do, or what our outcomes are for a program.
So going beyond checklists to actually making sure people actually completed the work, and not only that, but internalized it and got to own it and yeah, use it.
Well, and the other thing is we want to make it so good that they want to complete it, that they want to do it. We want to give them a taste, and we want them to come back for more. Oh, that was so good. Oh, that coaching class, that thing rocked. I've had so many good results from that class. And then they're going to go tell somebody else about it. And they're going to go tell somebody else about it. That's what we want. We want not just their hands, but we want their hearts and their minds. We want them fully engaged, fully invested.
That's awesome.
One other question, if you don't mind me asking, like, I know that HubSpot, like Netflix, is known for its very strong culture, like deliberate culture, right? Like you publish articles about this. How do you think that affects people's, you know, willingness to engage with this kind of, you know, checklists and resources you're providing them? And would this be portable in other organizations where that sense of sort of common culture is not as strong?
So I think that whether or not people use checklists or whatever it is we serve up is really about the culture. I think it's the culture that you create. You can create an accountable culture, or you can create a culture that is sort of loosey-goosey. And if you want to do it, you can. Totally up to you. And I think we're somewhere in between that. We're sort of in the middle on that. But I think it does matter. And it matters from the top down, because people follow other people. People follow their leaders, right? Their leaders are the example. And so whatever example I'm setting around accountability, around heart, around whether or not I'm using this, is the example my employees probably going to follow. So from the top down, we have to do that. And I think that's something, at least where heart is concerned, that HubSpot does really well from the top down. Not perfect by any stretch, but from the top down, our executives believe, and they created heart. They believe in it. If you've not read our 120-some page culture code, read it. It's for real. But we established that really from the top down. We reference it a lot when we in training, or when we're developing people and we're asking them to do this or do that or engage in this. We always connect it back to our culture and our heart and how we want to show up in a way that is HubSpot-y. That's what we call it. It's HubSpot-y. So yeah, it's woven into our fabric. And other companies can do it. Really hard though, really hard to build culture from the bottom up, or even the middle up or middle out. Culture is, I think, is a top-down kind of thing.
I love how you're energized by it. So that's super cool to see you internalize that. So thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. We're at about the time, so I wanted to just kind of wrap this up. So that was Stephanie from HubSpot, Leadership and Development, mostly around enabling managers to develop their people. So I love this, and I know that anything that has to do with checklists or something that's very tangible does well with the community. So some takeaway, something that they can bring back to their organizations and implement. So super awesome.